Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. We're really diving deep today, getting into Palantir's financials
Yeah.
and, specifically their income statement.
Yeah.
Trying to understand their journey financially over the past few years.
Yeah. And I think this is a really interesting one because we're talking about a company that, for so long has been kind of this, mythical company, right? Like they work with all these government agencies, they've got their fingers in all these different pots, but what's really going on behind the scenes, right?
Right, and I think, to understand that we got to look at think of it like a financial report card.
Right.
The income statement. It's going to show us money coming in, money going out, and, ultimately what's left over.
And what makes this deep dive even more compelling is that we're not just looking at a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
We're analyzing Palantir's financials from 2020 to the present using something called the trailing 12 months, or TTM for short. It's basically a way of looking at the most recent 12-month period, which gives us a clearer picture of their current financial health.
So we're getting the full story here.
Exactly.
And when we look at Palantir, the first thing that kind of jumps out is the revenue growth. They've gone from bringing in $1.1 billion in 2020 to a massive $2.48 billion in the TTM. That's more than doubled.
It's huge.
What does that kind of growth tell you about the demand for their products and services?
It's a clear indication that Palantir is tapping into a growing market, right?
Okay.
Their offerings, especially in data analytics and security, are becoming increasingly sought after, which is reflected in these impressive revenue numbers.
Yeah.
This kind of upward trajectory usually gets investors excited.
Right.
But as always, the real question is this revenue growth translating into profit?
Right, because a company can be bringing in tons of cash, but if they're spending even more, it's not exactly the best situation.
Sustainable, right?
Yeah, not sustainable.
Yeah.
So let's follow the money and see where it's going. We're going to break down their costs into two main categories. Cost of revenue and operating expenses.
Okay.
Cost of revenue is pretty self-explanatory. It's the cost of actually delivering their products and services. Now, what's interesting here is that Palantir's cost of revenue has remained relatively stable, even as their revenue has, rocketed up.
That's a good sign, right?
Yeah.
That suggests they're becoming more efficient in their operations.
Okay.
They're figuring out how to deliver these services without their costs skyrocketing, which is key for long-term sustainability.
Okay, that's promising. That's promising.
Yeah.
But then we have this other piece of the puzzle, operating expenses. And this is where things get a bit more complex because it covers a wider range of costs.
Right. This is your R&D, your sales and marketing, general administrative expenses, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and unlike their cost of revenue, Palantir's operating expenses are still a significant chunk of change.
And this isn't necessarily a red flag for a company like Palantir.
Yeah.
They're known for their heavy investment in R&D, constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible with data.
Right.
These investments, ideally, right, translate into cutting-edge products and services, which can give them a competitive edge in the long run. However, it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, those expenses have to start translating into profit, right?
Right.
So it's a delicate balance
Yeah, for sure.
between investing in the future and making sure that those investments are paying off.
Makes sense. So it's like they're placing a big bet on their future, right? By investing all this money in innovation and R&D, but digging deeper into those operating expenses, we see their R&D spending has actually decreased a bit recently.
Yeah.
In 2022, they spent $448 million, and in the TTM, it's down to $343 million. It seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
Considering they're all about this cutting edge tech.
It is interesting, and it's something investors have definitely been watching closely. I think there are a few possible interpretations here, right? One is that maybe they're shifting gears a bit.
Yeah, okay.
Focusing on, bringing their existing products to market more aggressively instead of just developing brand new ones.
So instead of pouring resources into creating the next big thing, they're saying, okay, let's refine what we got, let's scale what we got.
Exactly.
Okay.
Another possibility is that, they've achieved certain efficiencies in their R&D process, right?
Okay.
Maybe they've streamlined their research or found ways to innovate more cost effectively.
Got it.
It's hard to say for sure without having more insight into, their internal operations, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
It's like a detective novel.
Right.
We're looking for the clues to try to understand what's the bigger picture here.
Exactly. Yeah.
And speaking of clues, their interest expenses have practically vanished.
Yeah.
They went from $14.1 million in 2020 to almost nothing in the TTM.
Right.
That sounds like good news, right?
It's definitely a positive sign.
Okay.
It suggests that they've done a good job of managing their debt. They might have refinanced some of their debt at lower interest rates. Maybe they paid down a significant chunk of their debt.
Okay.
Either way, it's good for investors because it means more of their earnings are flowing to the bottom line, which ultimately boosts their profitability.
Which brings us to, I think, the million-dollar question. Are they actually making money? Because, they were in the red for a while. They were operating at a loss. What's changed?
Yeah, they've made a pretty significant turnaround.
Okay.
From 2020 to 2022, they did report operating losses,
Okay.
which, again, that's not uncommon for, companies that are in a growth phase, right?
Right. They're spending a lot of money to grow.
Exactly.
Right.
And especially for a company like Palantir that's investing so heavily in R&D and expanding its operations.
Right.
But in 2023, something interesting happened.
Right.
They shifted to profitability.
So no more red ink. They're in the black.
Exactly. They reported an operating income of $292 million in the TTM. So
Wow. It's pretty impressive. It's a testament to their ability to scale their business and start reaping the rewards of those earlier investments.
Okay.
They're no longer just this company with huge potential. They're actually proving that they can turn that potential into profit.
Now that's a turnaround story I like to hear.
Right.
Going from losses to profit is a big deal, but it's not the only factor to consider when evaluating, how financially healthy they are.
100%, yeah.
So walk us through that. What else should we be paying attention to?
So we've talked a lot about their income statement, right? Which, gives us this view of their revenue, expenses, and profit. But to really, to get the full picture, the comprehensive understanding of Palantir's financial health, we need to consider their balance sheet and cash flow statement as well.
Okay, hold on a second. I think we need to pump the brakes for a second for some of our listeners who might not be as familiar with those terms.
Of course.
Can you just give us a quick rundown of what are those statements telling us and why are they important?
Absolutely. So think of it this way. The income statement tells us how much money Palantir made or lost over a period of time, right?
Okay.
The balance sheet, on the other hand, is like a snapshot
Okay.
of their financial position at a specific point in time.
Okay.
It shows us what they own, so their assets, what they owe, their liabilities, and what's left over for the owners, which is their equity.
So it's like a financial health checkup.
Exactly.
Yeah, we get to see what do they have in the bank, what debts are they carrying, what's their overall, net worth.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then we have the cash flow statement, which tracks the movement of cash both in and out of the company.
Okay.
It shows us how they're generating cash and how they're using it, so it's like following the money trail.
Okay, got it. So by analyzing all three of these statements together, we get a much deeper, richer understanding of their financial health.
Exactly. Right.
We can see if they're not only profitable, but also if they're managing their cash flow well, if they're maintaining a strong financial position.
100%, yeah. And I think, it's important to remember those kind of intriguing details we uncovered earlier.
Yeah.
The dip in R&D spending, right. And we talked about, the increase in shares outstanding.
Right.
When we analyze those things in the context of their balance sheet and their cash flow statement, they can provide even richer insights.
It's about putting together a puzzle.
Right.
Each piece, each financial statement gives us a part of the picture, and then when we combine them all, we get a much clearer view of the whole story.
I like that analogy, and just with a really complex puzzle, analyzing these financials requires you to, consider all the pieces.
Yeah.
Because there are often nuances and interdependencies that aren't immediatally apparent.
This has been, I think, an incredibly insightful deep dive.
Yeah.
We've uncovered some, I think, fascinating trends and details
Yeah.
of Palantir's journey financially, from their impressive revenue growth,
Yeah.
right, and this recent shift to profitability. But to your point, we also need to consider the balance sheet. We need to consider the cash flow statement.
It's all part of the puzzle.
It is all part of the puzzle, and I think, as with any good, investigation, we're left with even more questions to ponder.
That's the beauty of it, right? It sparks curiosity. It makes us want to dig a little bit deeper.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Palantir, we'll leave you with this. Given their financial performance, their investments, and this ever-evolving landscape of data analytics and security, what's your prediction for Palantir's future?
And more importantly, how might their story shape the future of the industries they operate in?
Those are definitely questions worth pondering.
For sure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.
See you next time.
Now that's a turnaround story I like to hear. Going from losses to profit is a big deal, but it's not the only factor to consider when evaluating, how financially healthy they are, right?
100%, yeah.
So, walk us through that. What else should we be paying attention to?
So we've talked a lot about their income statement, right? Which, gives us this view of their revenue, expenses, and profit. But to really, to get the full picture, the comprehensive understanding of Palantir's financial health, we need to consider their balance sheet and cash flow statement as well.
Okay, hold on a second. I think we need to, pump the brakes for a second for some of our listeners who might not be as familiar with those terms.
Of course.
Can you just give us, a quick rundown of what are those statements telling us and why are they important?
Absolutely. So think of it this way. The income statement tells us how much money Palantir made or lost over a period of time, right?
Okay.
The balance sheet, on the other hand, is like a snapshot
Okay.
of their financial position at a specific point in time.
Okay.
It shows us what they own, so their assets, what they owe, their liabilities, and what's left over for the owners, which is their equity.
So it's like a financial health checkup.
Exactly.
We get to see, what do they have in the bank? What debts are they carrying? What's their overall, net worth?
Precisely, yeah.
Okay.
And then we have the cash flow statement, which tracks the movement of cash both in and out of the company.
Okay.
It shows us how they're generating cash and how they're using it, so it's like following the money trail.
Okay, got it. So by analyzing all three of these statements together, we get a much deeper, richer understanding of their financial health.
Exactly.
We can see if they're not only profitable, but also if they're managing their cash flow well,
Yeah.
if they're maintaining a strong financial position.
100%, yeah. And I think, it's important to remember those kind of intriguing details we uncovered earlier.
Yeah.
The dip in R&D spending, right? And we talked about, the increase in shares outstanding.
Right.
When we analyze those things in the context of their balance sheet and their cash flow statement, they can provide even richer insights.
It's like putting together a puzzle. Each piece, each financial statement gives us a part of the picture, and then when we combine them all, we get a much clearer view of the whole story.
I like that analogy, and just with a really complex puzzle.
Yeah.
Analyzing these financials requires you to, consider all the pieces.
Yeah.
Because there are often nuances and interdependencies that aren't immediately apparent.
Yeah, this has been, I think, an incredibly insightful deep dive.
Yeah.
We've uncovered some, I think, fascinating trends and details about Palantir's journey financially from their impressive revenue growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this recent shift to profitability.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, we also need to consider